I found a really good article by The Guardian. It's top notch, and I'm going to read it and give my position afterward. An estimated 85,000 children under the age of 5 have starved to death over the last 3 years as a result of Yemen's civil war, a report from Save the Children has found, and the charity urged an immediate ceasefire to prevent more loss of life. The figure is a conservative estimate based on UN data on severe acute malnutrition, which the international body says has afflicted more than 1.3 million children since the conflict between the Houthi rebels and the Saudi-led coalition that seeks to restore Yemen's exiled government began in 2015. About 14 million people, half of Yemen's population, are currently at risk of famine, largely because of Saudi border blockades designed to weaken the Houthis, which have also strangled civilians' access to food, fuel, aid, and commercial goods. Fears for Yemen's civilian population have increased in recent weeks because of an escalation in fighting around the Red Sea port city of Hodeidah, through which about 80% of the country's imports flow. Even a small amount of damage to the port's facilities and a delay in aid deliveries is likely to lead the UN to declare a widespread famine. I am scared of the war and worried we won't have food. It is distressing, said Saud, a mother to 13-month-old Nasir, whom Save the Children is treating for severe acute malnutrition. I can't go to sleep. It is torturing, and I am worried about my children. I couldn't live if any harm came to them. The new violence in Hodeidah has forced the charity to divert shipments for the rebel-held north of the country via Aden, a city normally loyal to the government, causing delivery delays of up to 2 weeks. This conflict has created a perfect storm of conditions that has driven the country to the brink of famine, said Bahanu Bhatnagar, a Save the Children spokesman. The violence has disrupted food production and destroyed hospitals and health centers where the weak and sick can be treated. Barriers to importing and distributing supplies have severely restricted the amount of food getting into and around the country, and it markets where food is actually available. Ordinary people simply can't afford to buy it, as salaries have been unpaid for months and the currency has collapsed in value. The UN Special Envoy to Yemen, Martin Griffiths, has extracted promises from both the coalition and the Houthis to attend peace talks at the end of November after a failed round in September. That's enough of the article. You can read the rest for yourself. So, this is a conflict that started 3 years ago, as it mentions there, under Obama. And I feel the need to bring it up because a lot of times when you criticize him, especially online, you have people who are not familiar with you who say, oh, you must be a secret Trump supporter and you're trying to get Trump reelected by going after the Democrats. When in reality, you have a problem with policies that have been supported by members of both parties. A significant perspective because, well, the entire basis of the two-party system is having a choice, a difference between both sides. So, for example, a lot of times you'll have Republicans start talking about social issues, abortion, matters such as that, same-sex marriage, these things that they can tout out and say, see, I'm for the way things are supposed to be, not that new-aged random stuff. And, that's all marginal to me because it's a distraction. So you read the report, 85,000 children in the rough estimate, possibly even more. This is just them being conservative in how many people have died. And I want to clarify, it's very simple to understand this. The way it works is that Saudi Arabia is pissed off that the Houthi rebels overthrew their little buddy government. So in their butthurt manner, they decided to block off the ports and prevent new food and medicine from coming into Yemen, while also destroying hospitals, mosques, schools, and pretty much anywhere else that that could be considered a place where civilians congregate. Now, in admitting that it was Obama who started it, I've thought a lot about Trump when he ran for president and the whole, oh, Obama did this, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of his supporters had this idea that there would be dare I say, hope and change, the same kind of hope and change that Obama talked about before replacing Bush and keeping us in Afghanistan, shoring up the surveillance state and leaving the banks alone just like Bush did. But anyway, I've said pretty regularly we're bombing 7 countries. That's Pakistan, Somalia, Libya, Syria, Yemen, Iraq, and Afghanistan. And these were all wars that either started under Bush or Obama. Guess how many Trump has ended? I can't even put up any of my fingers because none. That's the answer. Not a single one. And a lot of times when you just tell people, "Oh, we're still bombing this place," they don't seem to quite comprehend it. But I would think people who were fans of his would say, "Wait a second, I didn't like Obama. I didn't like his domestic policy. I didn't like his foreign policy. So of course I'm going to be upset that my guy, my little buddy, is continuing his policies anywhere." That's why they were all so happy when we got out of the Iran nuclear deal, the Paris Agreement, whatever. They were cheering. They were going, "Yeah, difference, woohoo!" Except when it comes to the military conflicts that we're involved in, and our complacency in these types of events. See, a lot of times when you talk to Trump supporters, neoliberals, anyone that watches mainstream media, a running thing they'll tell you is, "Oh, well, we couldn't get out of that war because blah, 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 blah." The real reason we don't exit any of these wars, I'll tell you the real reason, is because defense contractors pay members of Congress as well as the president to stay involved in these conflicts so they can get more money from their weapons and other machinery and utilities being used during these wars. And there you have the military-industrial complex. Now, Trump supporters are retarded enough to think that the last 2 years of... So when Trump started running for president, he said, "Oh, I'm not going to take any corporate money," which was a good thing. I applaud him for it. I said, "This is great, whatever." And that lasted for about 11 months until he gained the Republican nomination. Now, in saying that and having them not believe me, they can easily look it up, but I know they won't. And ultimately, I hate the way that the system is structured, because when you criticize one side, these people say, "Oh, that means you're part of the other team." I go, no, I hate both sides because they advocate for the same things. They tell you to focus on these social issues and then ignore a continued usage of the same crappy policies that result in 85,000 children being starved to death via their food being denied from them by a country that is upset that their little boyfriend government got yanked. And then the U.S. under Obama and Trump supports so they can get some coins and nickels and pennies and make their profiteer buddies even more rich. When you say something like this, and I do have a low opinion of Obama and Trump, it's not about making someone say, "Oh, I renounce all of my support for this person. This person is now the villain," even though I do believe they are. In my mind of trying to be practical, I would figure that the people who are supporters will say, I like this person, all these other issues, but that's not good. I can't accept that. I'm going to do a protest, or we're going to have some kind of demonstration. You don't see any of them doing that. Instead, what the average Trump supporter does when presented with this information is say Obama started it. They would do something to us if we weren't doing something to them. This whole American exceptionalism nonsense. It's the same retardation that allowed them to be okay with pulling out of the Paris Agreement, being the only country in the entire world to pull out of there, thinking that the rest of the world was trying to screw with them. It's the same reason that they reject the scientific consensus on climate change. They think all the scientists got together to trick the U.S. into thinking that that such a thing as global warming exists. It's all based on this paranoia that exceeds logic, common sense, and just any level of rationale. It doesn't make sense to call someone crappy or terrible, in their case Obama, and then give the guy they call themselves liking a pass when he does the exact same thing. What's sad is that it shows you the really the selfishness of Americans, because we have mass shootings, and obviously they kill 50 people sometimes, 30 people other times. That's all horrible, but I don't believe for 2 seconds that if 85,000 children starved to death in the U.S. because we were blocking food off from them, internally, we wouldn't have riots. We wouldn't have people losing their minds, going crazy over this. But Americans can walk away from these kind of conflicts and feel nothing. I can show them all the pictures of the children whose stomachs look like skeletons, again, over something that's completely preventable by just giving them food and not malnourishing them on purpose. And they'll just say whatever. They don't care because it doesn't affect them. And I've noticed it's been a lot easier for quote-unquote Obama supporters to objectively say that was a terrible policy than it is for Trump. They wonder why we call them a cult. It's because they don't allow for any diversity of thought. Look at what they did to Murkowski. She votes against Kavanaugh, and they go, oh, we're coming after you. But then, Rand Paul, and this is how it shows you how low information they are. Rand Paul votes against Trump the most out of any Republican senator. And because he voted for Kavanaugh, they're all right with that. But again, this is how dumb the intellect of these people are. You might say to yourself, "Oh man, you can't insult them and expect them to switch over to your side. What kind of spokesman are you?" The kind who's sick and tired, the kind who thinks that you should be more offended by having your taxpayer money used to massacre thousands of people in a far-off country that have never done anything to you, than some guy saying you're stupid for voting for the people who enabled that policy in the first place. Wake up. The two-party system is a scam. God, it's like you tell them about the oligarchy, you tell them about who is in the pocket of a donor, and it's reflected in their votes. It's like, do they think I like Ro Khanna and Bernie Sanders because they look like, my kind of people? No, it's because they actively oppose crappy policies. You won't get a single Trump supporter to tell you why it's a good thing to be bombing 7 countries. Or if you do, they're okay with it now versus before 2 years ago when it was Obama and they went, oh, it's so horrible. Look at what he's doing overseas. They really think that way. Just let my guy get in there. He can do the same thing and it's all right. It's A-okay. It's completely fine. And I absolutely despise that, you can have history, come back 30, 40, 50 years later. And the main thing that will be talked about when it comes to Obama or Trump is never going to be that they participated in a genocide. It's going to be Obamacare. It's going to be the tweets. Trump never, being elected to office, which is stuff that is significant. But when you are complicit in the murders of thousands of people, I think that should stick. Remember, we're not doing that because we're at war with the Yemenis. We're doing it because Saudi Arabia is our little buddy, and we let them get away with whatever they want, just like Israel. And let's clarify, people who live in Israel, Jews, are completely fine. Netanyahu is evil. We'll leave it at that. But we always have to clarify, it's not the people that live in Israel, it's the Israeli government. Just like you say I have a problem with the US, it's not Americans, it's the American government. But they do that little thing of trying to say everybody is anti-Semitic and they're, if they say anything about the government, they want to do something to the people that live there. All of this, stuff that is not backed by any logic or actual understanding of what a person is trying to communicate. But hey, they choose to do that and decide to not critically think about anything at all. So that's all right. And that's really what the modern Trump supporter is. It's just, I'm part of this team. They can do something I don't like, but it's never enough to cross the line. And with me, I had a line that was crossed. I used to like Obama. And then I found out about all these wars. I started seeing those pictures of those children overseas. I found out that 63% of Americans couldn't afford a $1,000 emergency. And then I stopped. I stopped liking him. But I never liked Trump because when he got in office, did the exact same thing. That same number I rattled off is still there. Won't raise the stagnant wages, but will trick his supporters into going along with that particular continuance, along with this one as well. 85,000 people can be starved to death. And could you imagine of all the hypocrites? We're the party of we're pro-life. We believe in children and all lives matter. All lives matter. And unborn lives. We're so concerned with that. And then you don't see a single one of them going, hey, wait a second, Mr. Anti-abortion senator. Why are you voting to eviscerate 85,000 kids who haven't even reached 5? You will never see a Trump supporter say it's all kabuki theater, it's a big scam, and they play right into it. They turn their brains off so they can support these people no matter what awful thing they do. And I cannot wait for the U.S. to be evaluated as the warmonger, imperialistic drain on the world that it is. Its government is terrible, as well as the people that voted for its current representatives.